Hi, I'm Doriana. Welcome back or welcome if you're new here. In today's video, I'll talk to you a bit about how I'm trying to get better at reducing my screen time. Whenever I go to a bookstore or I walk around Paris, I forget about my phone, and I want to build up routines such as journaling, reading more, that make me feel more present. I want to read more philosophy too, and maybe more in French. So in this video I'll tell you what media I'm enjoying at the moment and what I want to read more of. I recently discovered the Saint Laurent bookstore, which inspired me to also start reading more magazines and physical media, which is why I bought this magazine from Popeye. Their bookstore was beautifully curated with the books and magazines that inspired the Saint Laurent collections. So I decided to go and look for another magazine, this time a literary one. So I just got back from Shakespeare & Co., which was very nice. I always love going there, but sadly I cannot film inside. And I went to the cafe next to Shakespeare & Co., which is also owned by them, in order to read a little bit of the Paris review to tell you how it is. I'm very happy that they still had it, because I was kind of anxious that I would go all the way there and then they would be like, oh, it's out of stock. But they did have it. I didn't film inside because you're not allowed to film inside of Shakespeare & Co. I read the part with Eve Babbitt's, like her journal. To be honest, I'm not really impressed by her writing style. Obviously, it's different when she actually writes a novel compared to the journal. I do get that people say that she's very funny, and I can see that, and I also get why people would say that she's an icon of that period, because she seems to be very like typically Los Angeles style in the way that she talks and the things that she does. You cannot really relate to her. I think, for me at least, it's very difficult to relate to her. And I think some of the comments are a bit interesting about like men and the way that men perceive her. So I definitely want to read at least one of her books in order to see more of the hype, to understand why she's so popular. But I'm curious if her writing style in general is simplistic and like very straightforward and quite sarcastic and funny the way that it is in her journal. And yeah, that's probably why I will also get one of her books in order to give it a try. And other than that, I also got to talk a little bit with this woman who was sitting next to me in the cafe. We got to talk a little bit, I mean, when I say a little bit, we actually talked for like 10 to 20 minutes about American politics and a little bit about literature and university. Now I'm more excited to read this because I feel like it also has a nice memory attached to it. For the past few years I've been reading less and less because of the fact that I read so much for my courses at university and now in my master's, that I generally don't have the energy or even the time to read something outside of my classes. But I really want to make that time this year because I think it's just an excuse that I've had for the past few years. And if I can scroll on the internet so much, I can definitely, reduce that time that I spend on my phone and read more. So I started having this like book club with some of my friends. We choose a book each month that we want to read, or even like quicker than a month. But last month, for example, we chose the book Flash, the one that won the Booker Prize for 2025, and it was great. We also went to the event that David Szalay, I think that's his name, had at Shakespeare & Co. in Paris. I feel like the moderator really chose some questions that most people probably thought about when they were reading the book, and I think it's just a great book to kind of start a conversation about toxic masculinity and how certain traumas can impact the way that a man develops throughout their life, or a person develops in general throughout their life, and the way that that impacts their relationship with other people around them. In the case of the main character, the fact that he goes through sexual abuse when he's very young really impacts the way that he kind of deals with his relationships with women. and also in an interesting way that kind of intersects with the way that he deals with money and his social class as well, when he moves from Hungary to the UK, to London. So I thought that was very interesting. It's not one of my favorite books, but I'm very glad that I read it with one of my friends, because in that way we also got to discuss it. So I think having a book club with one of your friends is like an amazing idea in order to get back into reading. I really want to be more present this year in terms of the art that I consume and the things that I consume in general. I want to actually choose what I want to read. And I know that sounds like very, obvious, like of course you want to choose what you want to read, but a lot of times I just get recommended a lot of things, and the algorithm obviously knows what I like, but I also want to just discover a little bit more when it comes to literature and articles and magazines online. So one of the magazines I'm really into reading right now, actually I have two magazines that I'm really into reading right now. One of them is ID magazine, and they just posted an article, a piece about Hamnet, and how the director of Hamnet wanted to have a specific type of like photographer for the scenes that they were taking, and instead of having like a normal like film photographer with them, they actually chose someone who used to do documentaries. But I also have a very interesting article that I read from December that they published, which was about performative and the topic and the idea of what performative really means and how it's changed. And it's an interesting conversation about language and the way that it changes throughout time, because we didn't used to say that something is performative in the same way that we do now. Like it used to be more about actually, putting a performance and being very good at it, or it was more about like theater, and then it started being about public speaking, and now it's about kind of just showing this image that people want to see. And last year we saw a lot of this when it came to like people talking about the performative male, and I think it's a very interesting topic because we do want to be perceived by people in a certain way, and I think maybe even when we don't really recognize it, we're all a little bit performative. Like me, when I film certain parts of this video, obviously I film them with the intention of being perceived in a certain way by you. I also want to read more of Philosophy Now, which is this great magazine for people who are interested in philosophy. It's quite beginner friendly, I would say, and they have a lot of their articles online, so you don't need to buy the magazine in order to be able to read it. But I do recommend trying to buy it because it's a small business, so I'm always afraid that they're going to like run out of business and not post anything anymore. So this is it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. It was mostly about how I tried to kind of fight the urge to doom scroll, because I do feel like it's so easy to just grab my phone every day and like start like scrolling on Instagram or on YouTube. I do really like spending time on the internet because I get a lot of inspiration from people who post on Instagram or YouTubers, and obviously I really enjoy this because I also post on YouTube, and at the end of the day, without people watching and being obsessed, or not obsessed, but interested in other people's lives on social media, the whole idea of a content creator wouldn't exist. But I think I'm going to be more intentional this year with the way that I spend my time on the internet and the things that I read, and I definitely want to read more. I definitely want to read more magazines. So thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!